We either have a positive influence or we have a negative influence every single day. And the most powerful influence you can have on the positive side is to be communicating love to that person in their love language, in a dialect that's meaningful to them, that's filling up their love tank.
John, marriage isn't about romance or routine. I mean, those things are evident. It's about learning to love your spouse in the way they understand love. Every expression of love is definitely a choice. Some days that choice feels easy. Other days, it may take a sense of sacrifice. But in God's design, marriage isn't meant to make us happy. It's to make us holy. That kind of changes your entire perspective on what marriage is about. Gary, Leslie, and Les, welcome back to Focus on the Family.
Thanks.
You all been here before. Now, I got to start with this. Gary, of course, welcome. It's great to have you back. Let me ask you a question. There is brilliance. You're always humble about this, but every once in a while, an author...
That's so interesting because he's always bragging around me. He's very full of himself.
An author will hit on something that feels so God-ordained. And love languages is one of maybe 2 or 3 things that I could think of. Maybe like Kevin Lehman with birth order would be another one. But man, you really hit it. What gave you the insight about the 5 love languages? What were you seeing that developed a pattern in your observation to say there's something here?
Well, it actually grew out of my counseling, in which they would sit in my office and one of them would say, I just don't feel any love, coming from him or her. And the other one would say, I don't get it. I do this and this and this. Why wouldn't you feel loved? And I realized that they were sincere. In their mind, they were loving them, but the other person wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
So eventually, I just went back through my notes and asked myself, when people said, I just don't feel any love, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And the answers fell into 5 categories.
Just hit those really quick, and then we'll move.
Yep.
But I want people to just have the idea of what, if they've never heard a love language, what are the 5?
And these are in no particular order. One is words of affirmation, just affirming them verbally. One is acts of service, doing something for them. Remember the old saying, actions speak louder than words. That's true for these people. Another is giving gifts. It's universal to give and receive gifts as an expression of love. And then there's quality time, giving the person your undivided attention. And then physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. So those are the 5 love languages.
Leslie, let me ask, both you and Les teach
Sure.
at the college level, university level. What are you seeing amongst young people, the 20-somethings, when it comes to this whole area of love language? I mean, what happens in a classroom that catches your attention?
Yeah, well, let me tell you, this concept is pretty ubiquitous in society. I mean, you can't turn on a current comedian without seeing this in the language.
You see it on the side of a truck, next day delivery is our love language.
Right.
Whatever. It's just like...
See what you started, Gary? But so the students are expressing it. Probably
And they're familiar with it. They may not know where it came from. It's just part of the lexicon, love language. And I always find it fascinating when we can actually educate them on there's actually 5, and they're like hearing it for the first time. Now, Gary, this book's been out for what? The original
Years.
book?
30 plus years.
30 plus years.
And sold 1 or 2 copies.
Yeah. 20 million copies.
We say
to be
bazillion.
exact. Yeah.
Bazillion is right.
he's reached the bazillion level.
But it's accessible. Everybody gets it. Like you said, there's some intuitiveness to it. We're going to talk about this new book and how sometimes our intuition on it maybe gets the better of us because we don't understand what we call the dialect of your love language. But at any rate, it's the proverbial cookies on the bottom shelf. It couldn't be easier to learn how to love someone when you know their love language.
And I would think, Gary, that's success. You've seen it in the counseling when you've applied this and people actually grab it. There's 2 kinds of couples, people that actually will work on their marriage and others who won't. Yeah. But those that actually apply these principles of the love languages see improvement in how their spouse feels loved, which is the key, back to your point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to attitude. I'm giving you information, on how to effectively love the other person and meet that emotional need. But you have to choose. Even if you know the dialect, you still have to choose to speak it or not to speak it.
Yeah.
Because love is a choice.
We're going to go deeper into all of that, but there's some groundwork I really want to cover, unless you and I tease each other mercilessly, and I love that. And this is not geared toward you, but why do you think we're so quick to overestimate ourselves?
Well, you and me, or just people
just
in general?
human beings
Wait,
in general.
I think I know his love language. It must be sarcasm.
That's probably that's not fruit of the spirit, is it? I'm hoping the Lord might add
I know
that
you
one.
overestimate yourself. But, no, actually, there's some incredible research on this.
Yeah.
We do overestimate how good we are at things. Take empathy, for example. Most people will say, oh, I'm above average on that. But we do this exercise. We've done it with, countless students in big classrooms.
Right.
Where we will have them fill out a little questionnaire on how adept they are at interpersonal skills. And guess what? Out of 300 students, every single one of them is above average. And I think about 38% on average will say I'm in the top 1%.
Yeah. Which,
38%.
by the definition of average, is not refutable.
You don't have to be a statistician. No, something's off there. Right. So, and we always just have so much fun with this because we get the results back and we put it on the screen and we go, isn't it incredible that we got just out of this university campus, we just happen to get all the people that are the best at relationships right here in this classroom. And of course, they see the irony of it.
Right, and hopefully score themselves a little more accurately in the future.
Exactly.
But, that role of humility in us as human beings, made in God's image, it pauses me to think about God's nature being one of humility. I mean, He created the universe.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a God of humility,
and
we're created in His image. But I guess the question there, even in that example, is why is humility so elusive for us as human beings? We all struggle with that.
Yeah, it comes out of insecurity. One of the basic kind of fundamentals of anyone that's a good listener is curiosity. In fact, do you know what the single most important question is that we ask in a conversation? Ready? The follow-up question. Because most of us, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a lawyer. Oh, hey, I have a cousin who's a lawyer, and blah, 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 blah.
Let me tell you my story.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than saying, well, you must enjoy that. Tell me, where'd you go to school? Or whatever the follow-up thing is to it. But it's curiosity. That is the antidote to that kind of lack of humility interpersonally. When you're curious genuinely about another person, the kind of sense of having it all together and I'm really good, I'm in the top 1%, that goes away.
Leslie, I'll confess this since you're representing all wives here at the table. Way to go. 4 against 1. I would say 4 for 1. But in that regard, Gene and I, our point of pain is I'm pretty quick verbally. So I tend to like to complete her sentences.
Love it.
I think that's engagement. I feel like that's engagement. I'm showing you I am with you. And I know the end of your sentence before you do.
Right.
She doesn't see it that way.
Doesn't feel that way
she
to
doesn't
her?
feel connected like that.
I mean, I don't know how he knew that we had this very issue, but let's flip it around because in our home, I was the one that had to be confronted about that.
Right.
I thought, I'll finish your sentence and you'll know I'm with you before you even get it out.
It's a compliment.
Oh, I'm so here. And you felt shut down. And a lot of times the end of the sentence wasn't exactly what you had in mind.
Yeah, it's like, if you want to tell the story now and change the narrative of everything I was getting ready to share with you,
Right.
go ahead and finish the sentence. It's not
When I was confronted, this was a point of humility for me because I thought, everyone in my life thinks I'm the best listener. This is the gift the Holy Spirit has literally given me. And my husband, the person I love the most, isn't feeling listened to. Talk about humility. And then I was defensive, and then I started noticing. So, yeah.
I'm shrinking before your very eyes right here. I mean, I can feel it. I'm trying to work on it. It's at the forefront of my brain.
Amen.
And I could feel myself going, like catching the words before they cross my lips, try to hold back. So I'm working on it. Gene, give me a little more time. I think I could get
Grace,
this.
Grace.
How did you get out of that habit, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I think what Les just put his finger on, and we've all talked about, is true listening is not about our response. It's about our curiosity.
Yeah.
So it's continuing to be engaged, but to open up the spirit of the person we're talking to, not to show that we're amazing and how we're tracking with them.
And to listen with what Theodore Reich called the third ear, listening to the emotions underneath the verbiage.
Filling your spouse's fuel tank is the concept, not filling yours, which I think I'm describing filling mine.
Yeah.
How do we identify that? How do we learn to fill their tank in the language, like you said earlier, that fills them? How do we get to know them well enough to do that?
Well, I think by nature we're all self-centered. There's a good part to that. That means we take care of ourselves. But when it becomes selfishness and we're thinking in terms of what am I getting out of this, this is the problem. And that's why through the years I've had people say, Gary, we read the book, we took the quiz, I know his love language or her love language, and I've started speaking it to them, but they're not speaking mine. And I said, well, let me make sure I understand you. You're speaking their love language in order for them to speak your love language? That's manipulation. That's selfishness. The Bible talks about unconditional love. You're going to love them no matter whether they love you or not. And that's the most powerful influence you can have on them. And what I'm excited about is this new book is going to help them be more effective in communicating love to the other person. Because in the Bible, the challenge is that we're to love others,
Yeah.
And so when you know not only the primary love language, but you know the dialect or dialects that are most important, and you also understand how the personality interfaces with that, it just gives you a better understanding of how to effectively communicate love to the other person.
Which is how we came to this whole thing, right? You and I were talking on the phone. Leslie and I would counsel a couple, and we would talk to them about 5 love languages. And then every once in a while, we would get a couple, and one of them would go, "Hey, I know her love language. I'm speaking it, but her love tank is not full. What's going on?" And I would go, "Just a minute, I'm going to call Dr. Chapman and find out what's going on here."
Dr. Chapman, line 1.
And we had enough of those conversations to finally kind of do some research together and begin to figure out that so often that was the case because they didn't understand the dialect within that love language. And it was true in our own relationship, too, because I knew Leslie was words of affirmation, but sometimes I would encourage her and I would really pour it on, but it just wasn't filling up her love tank. And that mystery was, solving that mystery is the result of this new book, The Love Language.
Just give us
That
one or
Matters
two
Most.
points there.
Yeah, well,
Quickly.
Right now, are you taking
Gene
notes?
is words of affirmation as well. So.
Yeah. So, it was encouragement, I thought, was what words of affirmation was about.
So he would literally pour it on because words matter to me, right? And he would say, "I believe in you. I know you can do this," whatever it was. Well, instead of feeling loved, I just felt pressured. Like I didn't even want to do this. Why are you cheering me on like that? We discovered that he thought encouragement was my pathway, my dialect, but I really respond to compliments. Speaking of humility.
No. But help us husbands.
Yeah.
Because we're going.
When I can say to her, instead of, "Hey, you want to write a children's book? You'll be great at that. You should get on that right now and get it."
Yeah, that does sound like pressure. Sorry. I would agree with that. But what were those words that did mean something, that did fill your tank?
If he would say, I mean, it could be the most ridiculous thing, like, "Oh, your eyes sparkle when you wear that sweater.
Yeah.
Watch out. I'll be wearing it for the next month." You know what I mean? Because that made me feel it just totally loved. And everyone knows what it's like when that reservoir in your soul fills up.
So for
Well, everybody, but I think husbands do struggle with that gauge.
Yes.
I don't think we read it as effectively maybe as wives. I don't know if you agree with that,
I
Gary.
don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's wives and husbands myself, because
Well,
it doesn't
it
matter.
is.
But what we discovered, Jim, is that there's 3 dialects within words of affirmation.
And we're going to cover those next.
Okay, so this is just a quick note that the book we're talking about is a terrific resource, kind of a follow-up to Dr. Gary Chapman's groundbreaking books about the 5 love languages. This is co-written with Drs. Les and Leslie Parrott, called The Love Language That Matters Most: How to Personalize Love So They Really Feel It. Get your copy today at our website, and the link is in the description below. I'm John Fuller, inviting you to leave a comment and subscribe to this channel so you can get all the latest episodes that we come out with. And tell a friend about this great content that we have to offer.
Leslie, let me start with you. Speaking the different love languages that Gary's outlined: words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. You guys now in this book go down deeper, as you just said, Les, into dialects. And give us an example of what a dialect looks like within a love language. Just stick with yours, which is words of affirmation. What do the dialects of words of affirmation look like?
Oh yeah, you bet. Because everything is in those dialects, right? It's all hidden there. The key to filling that love tank of the person you love the most, because nuances are what speak love. You know, you can't just get in the big category like words of affirmation, and you can get a little bit of traction, but it's when you really figure out this is the pathway right to the center of my loved one's heart. That's when everything explodes. And that's what dialects do. So, for instance, my dialect in words of affirmation is compliments. Les thought that encouragement was going to be the thing. But there's also appreciation. You know, some people just revel in feeling like, oh, you noticed what I did. You saw me. You saw the contribution I made. You called that out. You see I'm working hard. And they just light up with appreciation. But of course, they're all lovely. We all love to receive them. But there is one that will really, really have the effect.
And that's what I love about this deeper dive, because I think that's true. And you have done, all 3 of you have done so much counseling with couples, you'll resonate with this. But just, for example, the wife and the husband in that counseling room, and the wife is saying, I don't feel seen by him, or it's like he doesn't know me. Those are cries for fill my love tank.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
This is a place to start, to say, honey, sit down, read the book, get a better understanding, and be able to have that conversation. What fills your tank specifically?
Yeah, I think if they read the book, they're going to have much more information than they had just simply knowing what the primary love language was, because it's going to give them more specific ways to express that particular language and really communicate to them at a heart level, which is what we're really trying to do.
You know, Les, let me aim this at you, the skeptic, going, really, this is psychobabble. I mean, seriously, there are some people that will think that. But I'm sure, Gary, when you did this and formulated this, you could see Christ doing these things with those he encountered, I would assume.
Yeah.
And in that context, Les, when we do these things, we're called as Christians to be deeply loving. We should be known in the way we love one another.
Sure.
That's what the Lord said.
Yeah.
And in doing so, this is a mechanism for us to understand how to go deeper in love.
That's exactly right. And that's why this is a follow-up to that. Now, Gary has had lots of other books that have kind of come out of that, from military families, blended families, and teenagers, and so forth. But this is truly the next step. Why? Well, look at the title, The Love Language That Matters Most. I had a manuscript sitting on a table at a restaurant where I frequent in Seattle, and it had that title real big. And the server came up and she said, oh, the love languages, what is the one that matters most? Is it words of affirmation? Because that's mine, right? Is that the one that matters most, right? And I said, well, the words of, they're all important and they all matter, but the one that matters most is the love language of the person that's in front of you. And that really comes back around to empathy, that capacity to recognize what fills their love tank. And when you can do that, and like Gary said, so many times the focus is on, hey, this is my love language, so everybody love me this way, right? But when you can begin to really put yourself in another person's shoes and understand their love language, their dialect, the world doesn't get much sweeter in that relationship, because now you're speaking each other's love language fluently.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's so good. Let's cover at least one more of the dialects, and I think physical touch might be a good one. I talked about my son, Troy. Even at night, whatever he's doing, he'll come to me to say goodnight and to hug me. That's how intense his physical touch love language is. So with that, what are those dialects for the physical touch person?
Well, there's more dialects on this one
Yes.
true.
Really?
than any of the others.
Well, that's interesting.
7.
I actually love your question, because you're talking about your son,
Yeah.
right? And so often we think physical touch is all about romance, and there is romantic touch involved, but there's so many other kinds of touch that convey love, and there is a sort of protective touch, when someone just makes sure you're safe in in some kind of a setting. There's a playful touch,
Right.
There's like a celebration touch, someone who'll give you the high
On
five.
that playful touch, Gary and I, remember we were in Nashville just a few weeks ago together speaking to a group, and this woman came up to us afterwards, and she said, my husband knows that physical touch is my primary love language. And for him, he thought that meant tickling me.
It could be. It was a good test. And then when she said, this isn't the way to do that.
Right. But it is. That's playful touch.
Right.
But she says, that drains my love tank. So that's a great example of how
Yeah.
dialect is so important to
It's
this.
everything.
So what was her dialect then? in that
Hers
context?
was comforting touch.
Yeah.
She wanted a soothing touch on the back after a long
right,
day.
comfort.
Right. We were counseling. We did an intensive. Leslie and I did an intensive with a couple just this last week. I think it was 15 hours we spent with this couple
Correct.
in 2 days. And physical touch was her love language. And do you remember what she said about going to church and how if he didn't touch her?
Yeah, and if he'd be totally absorbed in the moment listening to a sermon, but didn't have just a way of connecting them with physical touch, she would feel
Yeah,
a sense of
if they
loss.
weren't holding hands
Yeah.
or put his hand on her knee or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful thing for people that have physical touch and to understand that dialect, because you may think tickling is the way to that person's heart, and it is not.
Yeah. Gary, I do want to emphasize that a little bit more, because I think us men, we see physical touch. Oh, yeah, that's mine,
Yeah.
because that's important to us
Yeah.
in an intimate way. But that's not at all what you're talking about in terms of physical touch.
No, I think that's often the mistake that men make. When you say physical touch, they'll say, oh, that's my love language. They don't even care what the others are. That's my love language, But no, it's far more than that. Now, it's certain that is one of the dialects, to be sure, physical intimacy. But the other dialects, if that's not their primary language, then the others are going to be even more important than that to that particular person.
Gary, I've always kind of tried to help men understand this, and you really helped me one day when you said, ask them when they get out of the car at the grocery store, if they're both together doing some shopping. Do you remember this? You said, ask them, do they hold hands on the way to the grocery store across the parking lot? That's physical touch, but that's not the kind of passionate physical intimacy that most men are going, yeah, that's my love language, right?
Yeah. Right.
Hey, allow me to interrupt for just a moment here to say how much we appreciate you watching. Now, if you find value in this content, subscribe by clicking below. It'll be a big help to us. Let's go ahead and return to the show.
Real connection does take practice, and we can understand it intellectually, but then doing it is sometimes a stumbling block for people. How can couples move from knowing to actually speaking each other's language? I mean, what are those mechanisms?
Well, if they're Christians, I'd say pray first. Lord, I'm married to this person, and I know they have the emotional need to feel loved, and I know their love language and their dialect. So help me, because this doesn't come natural to me.
Do you say, God help me?
Sometimes, maybe, yeah.
And God will help us. He will help us. But let's face it, if you didn't receive growing up, the primary love language of your spouse and the dialect that they want, dialect or dialects they want to receive it in, it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
So a man said to me, he said, Dr. Chapman, her language is words of affirmation. And I know that. He said, but I don't know how to say that. I never received positive words growing up, and I don't know how to say it. I said, well, you can't erase your history.
Right.
But you can start now learning. And I said, tell me 3 things your wife is good at. He said, well, she's a good cook, and she's a good school teacher, and she's a good mother. And I wrote 3 sentences out beside each one of those. I said, here's your homework. You go home and twice a day this week, you get in a room by yourself and say these words, read these sentences out loud. You hear yourself saying these. And when you come back next week, I hope you can say them to me without looking at your list. He said, well, I'll try it. You have to start where you are.
Yeah, that's good.
But we can learn these. But it means we have to want to do it, choose to do it, and God will help us because God wants us to love our spouse.
Yeah. Leslie, that answer actually sparks something in my mind. We've had a number of guests that talk about family of origin issues, the Yurkoviches, the way we love, for example. That formative time really does shape so much of who we become.
Yes.
And it's rare that we get an opportunity unless there's a need, a deep need that you say, I need help figuring this out, and you go to counseling and they begin to put these pieces together. But in this area of love languages and the idea of family of origin and things you did or did not receive, can we overcome those things if they're so deeply rooted in us that we haven't been loved in the right way, that we can overcome these things?
Most definitely. And I think that's why the 5 love languages is such a success, because it is so tangible and it speaks to that person in such a unique way.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We all have a story that shaped us. It is so helpful to think of that having shaped our own love tanks and the love tank of the person. It's not a one size fits all. It's like every different kind of car has its own tank and runs on its own fuel. And how our families loved us, how they failed us, our own personality, that all goes into creating our love tank. And it's helpful to realize, some love tanks drain faster than others. Some hold more fuel. Maybe if I grew up in a home, you described it earlier, Gary, where I got all these love languages spoken to me, then my tank is fueled up and doesn't drain as fast. But some of us have love leaks. You can siphon our tank really fast. And I think that's why recognizing, especially if you recognize, wow, my spouse speaks what I would consider a foreign love language to me. Like, it is awkward learning a foreign language for most of us. Some of us are great at that. I'm terrible. I remember we were going to take a trip to France, and I, ordered one of those kits, and I was convinced I would be,
fluent in 4 days.
Yeah, it was the most embarrassing, ridiculous thing. It felt clunky, whatever. Your love language is a foreign one for me. I had to treat it the same way in our marriage.
Yeah. But it does. The family of origin has a lot to do with that. In fact, in this new book, we have a whole chapter on your love tank and how your family shaped that. Some of us have big love tanks. Some of us are pretty small with our love tanks, and they need frequent fueling. Others can live on some, spoken word of affirmation because that's our love language for a longer time than other people can. So that's a really important insight that you have, Jim. The love tank is homegrown in so many ways.
Interesting. That's so interesting. What about the perspective of how you prioritize your own life? I mean, first it's the Lord. It's your relationship with the Lord. So many experts have been at this table talking about you don't have the capacity to change your spouse. You have to work on you. And often what happens in that setting is the Lord shows up and starts working on your spouse. But this idea of your love tank from God, filling your love tank with the Lord's love and understanding that deep, unconditional love as best as we can, and then the love tank with our spouse. Gary, speak to those expectations. I'm just thinking of the man saying, you know what? I told her I loved her at the altar, and we love the Lord, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
right? That's an extreme, but it proves the point.
Right, yeah. You know, I think if we understand this concept and we communicate love, it is true. We cannot change our spouse. That's true. But we can influence our spouse. And we do every single day. Mm-hmm. We either have a positive influence or we have a negative influence every single day. And the most powerful influence you can have on the positive side is to be communicating love to that person in their love language, in a dialect that's meaningful to them, that's filling up their love tank. That doesn't make them change, but it's a positive influence on them. They're far more likely to change if you're doing that on a consistent basis.
So, Les, here's the question. You're all doctors. You're all in this every day. Why, as a human being, do I push purposefully Gene's hot buttons? I mean, where in my head is it rational for me to say, well, if I say this, boom, I get a spark? It's so stupid of me.
Well, sometimes you do it, and she's told me you do this quite frequently. By the way.
I'm speaking on behalf of John. Just teasing. This is true. I mean, it is such an odd thing in human behavior.
Yeah.
In married couples.
Well, here's one reason we're oblivious to it sometimes, because we all live with an agenda. You have an agenda about what you're going to do when you get upstairs to your office after this, or a group you're going to speak to, or whatever. We have an agenda about where we're going to go for lunch. We have all kinds of agendas, right? And it takes a conscious effort to temporarily set aside my agenda to recognize your needs. That's when we speak that person's love language. That's when we're able to really understand their heart and have presence with them. And by the way, this whole thing is not about perfectionism. It's about progress, right? Yeah. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Persistence.
And you will fail. You're going to say stupid things. Jim, look at me.
No.
But when you do, you can recover. I'll give you a really fresh example in our own marriage that happened within the last 48 hours. And it makes me look like an idiot.
Pause. Think about this. Are you sure you want to do this?
Keep moving. Go ahead. Next question.
No, now you got me.
So Leslie was in the middle of kind of just ramping up in a really meaningful conversation.
Ramping up.
Well, you were on the front end. What I knew was going to be a longer conversation.
I think I know where this is going.
And I don't think you do, because this was so stupid on my part. And it had to do with one of our boys and so forth. And she was, kind of pouring out her heart on that. And in the middle of her doing that, so I have this little obsession with this new vacuum cleaner that we got. And this vacuum cleaner has this light on it that shows you where the dirt is.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a smart vacuum cleaner.
It's incredible. I mean, it's become my therapy.
Okay.
So.
Could we do a session on the Dyson vacuum?
Yeah.
There you go. We just did the ad. Everybody's going to get one.
I hope they send me one for free. But anyway, I don't know what I had it in my hand, and in the middle of her talking, I just turned the thing on because I saw a hair loose on the floor.
Happened.
And I thought, I'll just get that real fast because
I feel so much better right now.
I was so distracted by that what I needed to do. I couldn't really be present with her, but I didn't say anything. I just did it.
Yeah.
It was just so, talk about a love leak. Her whole love tank was just like completely empty. And and by the way, when you do something like that, here's what we know from research from John Gottman. When you do something so stupid, or you say something so stupid, it takes 5 times the positive to get back to where you were.
Well, going back to the leaks in the tank, that's true.
Right, yeah.
All those things are those leaks in the proverbial tank. So you have to now double, quintuple your effort to fill that tank up.
And getting that dialect dialed in is what matters.
But I love your insight that we do know how to nudge each other and touch those tender points.
Yeah.
But I think if you spin that, we're pretty bright, and we also know how to do the thing that makes them feel most deeply loved. It's that same intuitive understanding that we can just flip on its head and be brilliant at loving.
Yeah. Again, quality time, we get into that one as well, but quality time is that being present. And how can couples cultivate that kind of intentionality around quality time? I think Jean, again, an example there, she would feel quality time praying together, reading the Word together, sitting together too. But it's like the pressure of the gas hose, if we're talking about putting fuel in our tank. If we're doing those spiritual things together, it's like fully squeezed, and that gas is pouring in the tank. For us sitting together, it might be halfway in terms of her receiving the benefit of that. She's more into let's develop our relationship spiritually. So is that an insight? Is that a dialect? Is that knowing what fuel really fills her tank?
I think our relationship with God impacts everything. And I think the more we share our relationship with God in terms of praying together or reading the scriptures together or discussing a sermon together that we've just heard, it has a positive impact on speaking any of these languages, because when we feel, our hearts are beating together in our relationship with God, we're far more likely to really give attention to how to communicate love to each other.
Absolutely. And maybe that's the question, Les or Leslie, in terms of the dialects of quality time. What are they?
Yeah, no, I love this one. This one's kind of fun because we all experience time differently, and we even think of it as a resource differently. One of the qualifiers, and I've heard you say this time and time again, Gary, and it's so true, is quality time isn't just about being together. It's undistracted, full presence.
No iPhone.
No vacuum cleaner.
This is revelatory.
What about doing housework?
Yeah.
There's no
Should get some
evil.
points for that.
There is no evil eye bigger than if Jean's talking to me and the phone goes and I check it out and I look back at her and she's got that eye like I just committed the bad sin.
And we've all committed that sin.
And
We all
it's, you know
have.
what? She's right.
Yeah.
So
To be
let me
honest.
ask a question for us and everybody that's listening to us. Are you more scheduled or unscheduled?
In what area of my life?
Your whole, just in general.
Your
if
preference.
somebody
Well,
says,
8 to
hey,
5, I'm highly scheduled because of what I do here at Focus on the Family. And then at home, I tend to be far less scheduled.
You're spontaneous.
Yeah. So I can operate in both worlds.
And what about Jean?
Highly scheduled
All the time?
all the time.
Yeah, she likes to know what's going to happen. And
3
have a
lists to
plan
every
for it.
item.
Okay. And then the second question is, are you more future-oriented or more present-oriented?
That's interesting.
Are you energized by the here and now or the there and then? What's about to happen?
I think in my role that helps shape some of your, the demand of your vocation can shape some of these things, I think.
For sure.
So I think I've got to be thinking
How
future.
about Jean? Is she more future?
I would say present. She's
Okay.
more present. I tend to be more future. I think that's probably
if
accurate.
she is present-oriented and scheduled, that shapes her dialect for quality time. Is quality time an important thing to her?
Very.
Yeah. So what she will like is something that is paced and punctual. She
Yep.
wants to know, here's when it starts, here's how it's going to go, and she can now relax in that.
How about this insight? Never surprise me with a trip.
Yeah.
That will not be my favorite thing.
Right.
Tell me ahead of time so I know how to pack.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're unscheduled and future-oriented, surprise me every day,
Yeah.
right? So you get the idea?
Yeah, and I tend to be the other. Throw some clothes in the bag. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't even tell me where we're headed.
Yeah.
So you get the idea here. Time is important. Quality time is important to many of us as a love language, even if it's not our primary love language. But if you're not understanding the dialect within it, that is what really that's what fills up the love tank.
Can we talk about gifts? Because especially in some of my kids, I see gift giving and gift receiving. It's thoughtfulness. Apply this to the marriage relationship, because there are nuances here that I have not really understood until starting to read some of this book. The gift giving isn't just here's a gift I was thinking of you.
Yeah.
So
I think this is really important that we understand the kind of gifts, that's important to them. Like fanciful gifts is one of the dialects. And this can be fancy things. It can be jewelry. It can be a amazing flower arrangement that just blows her away. That's one of the dialects within this. Another one, of course, is functional gifts, like vacuum cleaners.
Wow,
You're getting one every year from me.
Thank you for teeing that up. We're going to keep getting one.
We know your love language.
So that's functional.
Yeah. So if you're giving them a functional gift, and their dialect is fanciful gifts, and they don't have to be expensive fanciful gifts, then you're not hitting them where they really need to be hit in terms of receiving it. And then there are sensible gifts, things that you've talked about that you really know that they would like to have because they've talked about that, and sentimental gifts, things that remind you of, remember that time when we were here, and all that kind of thing.
So often we're thinking expense. You might be newly married. People are listening and they're going, wow, we can't afford to do some of this. I can't afford a blender.
Right.
Even though my wife would love a blender. But Gary, you said in the book one of the most precious gifts you received from Carolyn, your wife, was what?
It was a little piece of paper that I actually have with me today.
Oh. Yeah, you carry
I
it.
carry it with me
Are we all just swooning?
everywhere I go. And now my language is words of affirmation, so this is a gift of words.
This was a home run.
Hand printed.
Look at his face lighting up.
No kidding.
My sweet Gary, I do love you. I shall pray for you. I am so blessed to live with you. I am proud of you. Parenthesis, thankful, excited, biblical proud, grateful. Life with you is beyond belief. Have fun, bear fruit, enjoy and return. Stay warm. Whoa! My love tank fills up. Just reading it.
I love it. I love your tank expression more than anything. Wow.
This tank's going to explode.
It's overflowing here. But that's beautiful. And that's the point.
Yeah.
And she hit it. She knows it.
Yeah.
And she really fed you.
Yeah,
That's a great
absolutely.
example of how these love languages sometimes blend into each other because words of affirmation, but it was a tangible gift. It's something you're carrying. How many years ago did she write that?
Oh, I don't know. The date's not on it, but it's been a long time ago.
Yeah,
But
and
I
he's still
carry it with
carrying-
me everywhere I go.
It's still in his leather notebook there. And that's the value of this love language, that it is a tangible representation. And whether it's sensible or whether it's fanciful or functional, the point is that it represents that you love me and I can see this.
It's a visible symbol of your love for me.
That's right.
Acts of service. This is one that for me trips me up because again, it's functional. Acts of service probably is not my first, second, third, fourth love language. It may be the fifth.
It seems like you're looking down on those of us that have this as our primary.
Can
I'm
you
even
tell
expressing
who
that. I'm so sorry, but it's like that's called life. Do good things to other people and do them now.
Well, I love. We put it in the new book, The Love Language That Matters Most. We wrote this story of Seth Meyers, the comedian, who he says, I don't know who this guy is that came up with the 5 love languages, but his love language had to be acts of service because my wife's love language is acts of service. And I come home and I want quality time and say, do you want to take a walk? And she'll say, yeah, after you clean the gutters.
That's my point. Exactly. Really, acts of service. Give me those dialects. What are they?
There's 4 of them. And I really appreciate all these because this is my number one.
Oh,
love
excellent.
language.
I'm actually
Yes,
talking to
acts of
somebody
service.
where acts of service.
Yes,
I've
and
never
that's-
met one like you.
That's why I felt insulted that you were looking down on
That's
us.
my gift.
Well, I'm going to list them off, and then we can come back to some. But saves time, that happens to be my primary dialect. When she can do something that saves me a little bit of time. Alleviates stress, instills security, and then conveys care. Some acts of service convey care.
And these are all nuances. Instills security.
Yeah, talk to
that's
me
a
about-
little mysterious, but
Yeah.
that's where you really lean in. Like acts of service are your thing. So you can depend on your spouse. They're going to do the thing they promised to do. And you're not going to have to worry. You're going to, they promise to pick up the dry cleaning and it'll be done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They take care of the pet. Whatever it is, you literally don't have to have the emotional load of owning that thing because you know that it creates that kind of security.
Yeah, they're
for you.
shouldering the responsibility with you.
Les, how is speaking our spouse's love language similar to Itzhak Perlman's mastery of the violin?
Well, we close this book with this little conclusion, this story about Itzhak Perlman at Carnegie Hall. And anybody that's into classical music knows this name and what an incredible violinist he is. And his backstory is just amazing, what he's had to overcome, polio and so forth in his life. And he came out onto that stage and gave the performance of his life and was interviewed about it. And he just emphasized the value of practice. He could have never done what he's done without practice, practice, practice. And, there's that old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? You practice. And we leave the reader in this new book by just saying, please don't focus on perfection. You're going to fail. Just keep practicing. Just keep practicing, because the more you exert a little bit of effort, the more we kind of intentionally set aside our own agenda and focus on the other person and really do our best to not just speak their love language, but their specific dialect. Wow, the whole world opens up in this relationship. And our love life expands because now we have done something that this person has been longing to experience, and that is to be seen and known and loved. You're going to fail, but keep practicing.
Absolutely, and for all of us, that's true. You don't do it overnight. You don't simply read even this book, and then the next day it's all perfect. But you find out what is the best way to invest your time and energy in meeting the emotional need of that other person, and that's the value of this book, giving you that added information that's going to help you be more effective in doing what you really are choosing to do, and that is meet each other's emotional need for love.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gary, Les, and Leslie, this has been so much fun and very in-depth and conversational, taking a look at the love languages and this deeper view into how to dial in your spouse's love language and fill his or her tank. This is terrific. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are kind of the practical tools that we need. So thank you for being with us today.
So good to be with you.
Thank you.
As always.
And let me turn to the viewer. Here at Focus on the Family, we are committed to helping you build the strongest, healthiest possible marriage. And we do that with great resources. This one, The Love Language That Matters Most, is a great new tool in that arsenal to help people. I know you guys writing it, that's your purpose in doing that. And we want to get it out to you. If you make a gift of any amount, we'll send it to you as our way of saying thank you for being part of the ministry. No amount is too small. $5, $10 is fine, and we'll get this out to you.
Yeah, contact us today. The link is in the description below, or give us a call, 800, the letter A, and the word family. Well, thanks for watching Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back next time as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.